Go for your testimony.
All right, thanks.
I'm going to call up the next panel of witnesses. Is Mr. Matt Jessup here? Come right up, Mr. Jessup. Mr. Jessup is the owner and tattoo artist of Fatty's Custom Tattoos, Inc. And I'd like to call up Mark Strasberg. Mark Strasberg is the owner. Is Mr. Strasberg here? Is Mr. Paul Rowe here? Oh, come on up, Mr. Rowe. Mr. Paul Rowe is the owner and tattoo artist, British Ink Tattoo Studio and Gallery. Mr. DeRutt Mercer. Mr. Mercer, come right up. Mr. Mercer is the manager and body piercing artist of Off the Hook Tattoos. Welcome. And I would like to hear from Mr. I guess first we'll hear from Mr. Matt Jessup. Mr. Jessup, go right ahead.
Thank you. Mrs. Chairperson and members of the council, my name is Matt Jessup, and I am the founder.
Mr. Jessup, is your mic on, the green light?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Should I get a little closer?
Yes.
There you go. Mrs. Chairperson and members of the council, my name is Matt Jessup, and I am the founder and owner of Fatty's Custom Tattoos in Ward 2. I'm a hardworking small business owner who employs 6 people. I'm also an award-winning tattoo artist who feels passionately about my trade, who has experience in helping to pass comprehensive body art legislation and regulations in the state of Maryland. I wanted to start by thanking you for addressing this important matter, and I appreciate being offered the opportunity to speak. I support the council's desire to finally regulate and create a set of standards for body art in Washington, D.C. Proper body art regulations and standards protect not only the citizenry, but the body art industry as well. Unfortunately, this proposed bill does not go far enough to fully protect the citizenry, particularly minors, while at the same time potentially hurting legitimate business owners and body art practitioners with unnecessary financial burdens during these hard times. I originally opened Fatty's in 1994 in Maryland before moving my tattooing business to Washington, D.C. in 1998. In 1997, when my shop was still in Maryland, I was asked to be a speaker for the Maryland Coalition of Professional Tattooists and Body Piercers, a lobbying organization that was formed in response to proposed legislation that would have severely hurt the body art industry in the state. This organization formed not only to fight the draconian bills that were being proposed at the time, the coalition was formed to support a bill that protected minors as well in support of Title X, a set of standards that continues to exist and protect Marylanders to this day. To my knowledge, Title X has been effective, non-intrusive, and has created appropriate standards and guidelines for the body art industry in the state. I would like to point out that the financial cost to the state and the body art industry was almost nothing to enact and implement Title X. I've included a copy of Title X in my written testimony. In my opinion, Maryland's successful example in regulating the body art industry should be used as a template for today's discussions. I have also included the set of disease prevention standards that I employ at Fatty's, which I hope will be helpful in guiding this process. These standards were taken directly from OSHA's Occupational Exposure to Bloodborne Pathogens standard. I am in favor of creating licensing for body art practitioners. I do have some concerns about the costs related to the licensing fees, and I hope that this council will do its best to keep the fees associated with this licensing affordable and fair. As a business owner during these hard times, every dime counts right now, and I would be really disappointed if I felt that this were merely an additional tax on doing business. I have made my recommendations for licensing requirements for body art practitioners in my testimony. I am also completely in favor of comprehensive body art regulations as they pertain to protecting minors. My concern is that this bill lacks proper protections for minors and doesn't go far enough to accomplish this goal. In my opinion, minors have no business getting tattooed and making permanent body alteration choices. Just think of some of the bad ideas and choices you may have made when you were a minor. Now just think if you were permanently stuck with those choices. Another consideration is that for most minors, their bodies haven't finished growing and changing in shape, which can later result in distorting their tattoo. There is not a single reputable body art establishment that I am familiar with that tattoos minors, and I hope the Council recognizes this and will change this provision in the bill. I am comfortable with allowing minors to be pierced with parental consent due to the fact that a piercing can be removed with little or no permanent marks. However, no minor should be allowed to receive nipple or genital piercings, which this bill does not address. Allowing children, even with parental consent, to receive these types of piercings is inappropriate and should be outlawed. Another concern about this bill is that ear piercing is exempt from these regulations. Ear piercing has all of the same inherent risks as any other piercing. I hope that the Council will consider this and change the provision set forth in page 1, line 41, to include ear piercing as a body piercing process. I was surprised when I read page 4, line 9, which states, "No person shall practice tattooing or body piercing without reasonable skill and safety by reason of illness or under the influence of alcohol or while using any narcotic or controlled substance as defined by Unit A of Chapter 9 of Title 48 or other drug in excess of therapeutic amounts or without valid medical indication or any combination thereof." I thought it was a strange provision considering it would make common sense not to be intoxicated while performing body art. After reading this, I decided to look up Chapter 37 regulations, which governs barbers and cosmetologists in the district, to see if this type of standard was routine for all professional licensing in D.C. There are no provisions in Chapter 37's Code of Ethics that even mention drug or alcohol use. It seems that barbers and cosmetologists don't need to be told not to be under the influence of drugs and alcohol in their regulations. I find this double standard offensive, and I hope the Council will recognize this provision in the bill as unnecessary and potentially discriminatory towards those of us in the body art industry. Finally, my biggest concern with this bill is that there are no provisions in this bill to address the true threat to public health, which are underground body art practitioners who engage in body art out of their homes, or worse, by conducting tattoo parties in clearly unsanitary environments. These are the true threat to public safety and health, and I would encourage the Council to consider adding a provision to this bill which would make underground body art practices illegal with serious consequences for the people who engage in these practices. Despite the flaws in this bill, I am pleased that the Department and the Council are addressing this public safety issue. I feel that if this bill is modified with the recommendations that I have set forth, that the district will finally be able to enjoy safety and security as it pertains to body art. Again, thank you for inviting me to speak on a topic that is very important to me and allowing my testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. And just to go over the provision about the alcohol and drug provision, I'm going to check because of the use of the surgical equipment that the tattoo artists and body piercing artists use. I'm not sure, and I'll check if medical professionals have that same provision as well. So not to be offensive at all,
right.
But, you know, because you deal with those surgical procedures, that was the concern. Okay. So I will look into that. And I agree, ear piercing should be included. There are other places that just do ear piercing. So that was the concern, that if we include ear piercing, it's going to bring in more than just the tattoo artists, you know, the tattoo parlors. Because I know a lot of malls, different locations do that and don't do the tattoos. But we'll definitely look into the ear piercing. So thank you for your testimony. I'm going to hold off on further questions until the entire panel speaks. So thank you.
Thank you.
And next, this is Mr. Paul Rowe. Correct. You may proceed.
Good morning. My name is Paul Rowe. I'm the owner of British Ink Tattoos on H Street Northeast. I've been tattooing in Washington, D.C. for 13 years. I cannot address the subject of body piercing as this is not my field of expertise. Under controlled conditions and when performed by experienced practitioners, the risk of infection from a tattoo is minimal. In Washington, D.C., reputable professional tattoo practitioners are using standard precautions to reduce bloodborne pathogen exposure to a minimum through the use of personal protective equipment, single-use sharps, correct disposal of contaminated waste, etc. Universal precautions are industry standard, where each person and every point of contact in the procedure is considered potentially contaminated and treated accordingly. However, amateurs and hobbyists with little or no training or experience pose a greater risk to the public and will be difficult to monitor and regulate. Tattoo parties held in private residences pose a much higher risk to public safety than unregulated street shops, as businesses conducted in uncontrolled and often unsanitary conditions. The proposed bill contains a clear statement of purpose: to protect public health, safety, and welfare. If the interest of the Council is public health and safety, then any regulations should be structured to encourage and support the industry standards that professionals already follow every day, and not simply to discourage legitimate practitioners from conducting business in DC with overly burdensome laws and unnecessary fees. To that end, there are certain items in the proposed code that I believe should be reconsidered. In Section 2, some definitions need revision. If you have a copy of the bill in front of you, please refer to Definition F, tattoo, should be defined as insertion of non-toxic pigments into the dermis portion of the skin. Breach of the subcutaneous layer can produce scarring, which is an undesirable result of an incorrect procedure. Scarring or scarification is not a tattoo. Scarification is a separate form of body modification. Branding, another form of body modification, also produces scars and is also not a tattoo. Definition G, tattoo artist, any person who actually performs tattooing. Managers and establishment operators who are not trained to tattoo are not tattoo artists and should not be licensed as such. In Section 5, Prohibitive Acts, 1A, no person shall perform tattooing or body piercing services on any person under 18 years of age without the written consent of a parent or legal guardian of that person. I believe that 18 years of age should be the minimum age for giving and receiving a tattoo in DC, and that tattooing should be reserved for those who can legally enter into a binding contract of services. By making 18 the minimum age, we also afford protection to minors whose legal guardian may not have their best interest in mind. In the last scenario, a legal guardian may be marking a minor as a sign of ownership, as in cases of trafficking and child prostitution. Alternatively, a legal guardian may only have weekend custody, and the weekday guardian may raise issues with the practitioner who is only following the rules. I personally have refused to tattoo anybody under the age of 18 for my entire tattooing career. In closing, when I ask my clients if they know that there is no licensing in DC, they are astonished and shocked. A public outreach and awareness effort should be made to inform the public of new licensure and what to look for when seeking out a tattoo artist. I urge the Council and the DCRA to consult with local established professional tattoo artists to shape smart regulations covering every type of practitioner, apprentice, artist, and instructor, and any type of tattooing environment, from street shops and studios to convention centers and hotels. Thank the Council for your time, and I respectfully ask if you have any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to hold off, but just to comment on the last remark,
Yes.
That is so important, the public outreach and education, because you mentioned there are a lot of hobbyists or the tattoo parties that individuals go out outside of the shops. So that's really important for, customers to know. Look for a license. Look for certain things before you get
It could be
a
as
tattoo.
simple as posters on the back of a bus.
Exactly. be
That
aware.
would be the minimal requirement.
And there
However,
should be a requirement for public education.